I'm here with Sasha Santiago. Thanks so much for joining. You are a filmmaker, founder of Actors Tank. You run FilmStack in Portland. Um, the you're doing hyper local distribution. You have an endless list of the topics that you write about, from AI to vertical to short form to blockchain, community, hyper local. Your coverage is everywhere, and it's very on point that this will be the first conversation that I'm having where there is no topic. We're going to decide what the topic is at the end of the conversation. Um,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I will start the 20-minute timer.
Ooh, timers. I like timers.
And usually at this point, I say, why did you choose this topic? You did give me three different topics, kind of, which was hyper-focused local cinema ecosystems, filmmaking with intent, and interactive. All three of which I think are great topics.
I think they're all interconnected with each other in a macro perspective. But yeah, I think where do we dive in? So I don't know. You should ask me questions because I don't want to go off the rails here. And I know it's 20 minutes. And I feel
Yeah,
like there was a moment when I was at the Lincoln Center and I got to see Pedro Almodovar do a Q&A.
yeah.
And when he rushed up to the front of the stage, he just kind of basically he just flipped the whole program upside down and he said, I just want to take questions from the audience because I want to be the most
Hmm.
like present and relevant to what the conversation needs to be. So please jump in if I go off the rails anytime.
I mean, it's you're like, I consider myself very scatterbrained. I don't know that it's scatterbrained, but your mind is just clearly like on so many topics. I think the thing you had said first was hyper focused local cinema ecosystems. That's something that I am definitely very interested in, and I'm curious to know what you mean by that.
Sure. So I think what makes us going into 2026 this time, and we know what's going on with the majors, with monopolies and platforms and just the whole intention economy, how movies are not kind of reigning anymore as far as like the thing everybody agrees with and is rushing to the movie theater to anymore. Every once in a while, you have a Taylor Swift movement, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, cinema is alive and well. It's just relevant to the audience. They'll show up wherever they need to show up. I find myself at this crossroads like many other NonDē film stackers, everyone that's on this kind of like stack wave right now, searching for the new trapdoors. And I think I've identified it as this like kind of like no man's land area, or maybe kind of like a purgatory area that's between legacy media and the creator economy.
Hmm. So are features like dead?
Yes, if they are considered to be standalone works. Yeah, I think features need to be repurposed to have a different intent of why they should exist.
Is that is that a good thing? Or is that a cause of a flawed distribution system
That they're dead or that they need to evolve.
that they need to evolve?
Yeah, I think evolution is important. Everything that we know about cinema in the last 100 years is that they had these evolutionary moments in time. And there's always the Luddites or those who like systems the way they currently are and don't disrupt the way we currently make money. And every once in a while, you get an easy rider that comes in and all of a sudden disrupts the flow of how movies are being processed. And then, as Rob Evans says, the lunatics took over the insane asylum all throughout the 1970s. And like prolific work came out of that period. So I think I like to think in my own way because I'm living in my time right now that this is the time I'm currently in. I'm at that doorstep where the lunatics can now take over the asylum and maybe introduce something out of left field, the easy rider of the 21st century or the 2020s
Hmm.
that could all of a sudden, you know, demolish any other business model that was thinking in the $50, $100 million range.
And that easy rider. but it's not a feature in your
I
it's
think it is a feature. There's two things I like to think about. Either I'm the one that's going to make it, or I hope somebody is a few steps ahead of me on the cusp of dropping something that will be indisputably unique to our times and speaks to the way people prefer to engage with works. I haven't seen it yet. I've seen like fragments of it on different platforms, but I haven't seen a kind of like, well, we'll know when we see it.
yeah. I think you and I relate a lot in the sense that um yeah, I think your takes are hotter than mine in the sense of like features truly being dead. But I love that you're doing like community and hyper local, which is just like nobody is gonna argue against that. Like that's everyone will support that. But you also are like uh you're really exploring I think controversial ideas in a really positive way. Just trying to stay on topic, but like from AI and vertical and short form and all the stuff I've seen you do. But I think what you're really trying to do and interactive, which I've worked in as well. I think what you're trying to do is just trying to exactly like solve this what is next.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any adults in the room that are going to help us decide that for us. Yeah, if they are in a place of position, they're at the tail end of their career or their lives. And for the most part, just like politics, they're not really thinking about generations before them at the moment. They're just thinking about more and more and more, whatever they can get. But let's get one thing straight.
Yeah.
I am a cinephile. I love feature films. I love the form of feature films. I am a student of feature films. If I had enough people around me, I would be directing like Godard. I'd be saying this scene from this movie and this era, this director, this tone, whatever it is. But I
Yep.
feel like that's a language that's lost. Last night, I got to meet a guy who was a DP for. I went to this like mixer, and I got to meet the guy who was a DP for To Die For and My Own Private Idaho. And the moment I met him, I was like, I am meeting an artist. I'm like, I know your shots. I know the rhythm of your movie that you were a participant in cultivating. And all of a sudden, like the cinema in me, just like, oh my God, yeah, that's what I want to make.
Yeah.
So there's two mindsets I'm in right now. And I think I'm in this like reflective mindset. And as much as I love being creative, I don't think you could be creative and reflective at the same time. That just like leads to insanity. But I do feel like I do have 20 years of guerrilla filmmaking in me. So it's like you can put me in the trench. I know what to do with the camera. I know how to draw a performance. I know how to write a 3-page versus a 6-pager versus a 25-page script. I know what the length would take to make that. I know what it would be like to make it on my own versus working with the team. So like all that, it comes from just, that's not flexing. That just comes from like being in the field. Like you know how that operates and your mind moves quickly like that. And like where I'm at right now is like, what is the new path of cinema? You know what I mean? It's not reinventing wheels. I think it's more about connecting dots. So when I think about that, I think about tech. I think about software. I think about the evolution that we're currently in with AI. Massive tech conglomerates like they're building and they're using these great tool sets, and they're disrupting business as we know it. And perhaps next 2 or 3 years, 4 years, things are going to look drastically different than we're prepared to even start accepting. Or it could be a bubble. I don't know. But I am curious about where does cinema fit in this time period right now. Like, how do we not forget or complete disregard 100 years worth of craft? How do we honor that and also not give a shit about it where it pins us down or weighs us down to try to preserve this kind of like artifact of what cinema is.
Yeah.
The auteur. I love the auteur. I got all my movie posters here, all of auteurs that I absolutely adore and love. But it's like, I'm going off the rails. You better hold.
I think both. I think like my personal opinion is like I think feature films. I think that is a distribution problem that will be solved. It's never going to be how it was, but there will be a life force for
Yeah.
small feature films. Not, I think NonDē might be the trick, but I also agree with you that something else is on the horizon, and I think it. I guess the question I would ask you is, do you think it's the future is guerrilla?
The terms are interchangeable in my opinion. I think it's
Look, let me be clear, not the uh, future, not the future of feature films. What I'm saying this like other mysterious uh,
I
future.
think it's yeah. I say I'm a guerrilla filmmaker. I would say to be more like I don't know, talking to somebody who's more analytical. I would say it's a more agile approach to making movies. So
Are we even talking about movies necessarily? Because um, when you start talking about tech, and this is something I've like kind of navigated, it starts to get harder and harder to keep it like guerrilla for, lack of a better word. But I think that that's kind of what is needed to make real cultural change. So it's
yeah,
that weird like push and pull of like it's not going to be a giant company probably. Um,
yeah,
but
I'm not arguing with that. Yeah, it's definitely going to be like these micro speedboats. It's not going to be these big vessels that take 16 months to turn around. Yeah, it's agile. So let's use the word guerrilla. So as a guerrilla filmmaker, you're basically you have access to state of the art equipment. All right, you can make cinema today in less than 5 minutes look like the
yeah,
stuff that people were just working months and years to achieve. You can actually technically achieve and capture those images. Now it comes down to the story, it comes down to the performance, it comes down to all those things. And then, once you have a beautiful piece of cinema or a film, then the biggest dilemma is how does it actually land with an audience? How do you engage with an audience? And that's always a dilemma. I mean, there's plenty of wonderful movies that are made every single year that never find their audience.
you're I want to dig more into like you said that you've seen parts of what you think this future is.
Yeah, I
I'm
think, yeah. So let's go back to maybe the what do you call it, the tentative title of the thing. So we're talking about hyper
yeah,
local
I'm more
film.
curious about this other thing because not too many people are talking about this, and
Okay,
you are doing so many different things. I'm wondering like what are you seeing uh, that does feel like it might be part of what's next?
gotcha. So there's a thing where we keep saying do things without permission, go and
Yeah.
not don't wait for permission. To bring some context to that, what exactly does that mean? Some people find the safety in waiting for permission because it means that they won't necessarily have to risk failing. And the longer you prolong the need to get out there and start building a movie, the longer you prolong the opportunity of not of maybe realizing what you might know already about yourself and others might find out. So, as a guerrilla filmmaker and as anybody who's a storyteller today, I think the idea is to put yourself in the mosh pit as soon as possible and start building movies. And if you think going to some other location other than your hometown or some other country or some other marketplace is the solution, I don't think it is anymore because obviously the world has become more and more decentralized. It's probably more beneficial that you just kind of like hunker down wherever you might be, look outside your window and say, you know what? This is an untapped marketplace. It might be a population of like 300 people. It might be a population of 300,000 people.
Yeah.
But what it is that it's a node in a map that Netflix and all the big people have, and they'll either put that one into a bucket of 1,000 other nodes that says these are all small town American nodes, or Portland, throw it in with Austin, throw it with all these other like mid-tier kind of like cities that are not real cities, not like LA or New York or Chicago.
Yeah.
So they're looking more at things in this like it's more of a global mindset. And I think if a non-D slash film stack enthusiast is looking for their next path, I think they need to start thinking smaller. They need to think a little more hyper locally is what I like to like call it. So figure out how you can revolutionize your hometown in a different way through the art of filmmaking. And some people say, like, where does that start? Where it's sales. You got to go to a place, wherever a place that needs some kind of like solution to either bring more business into the door, bring more attention to their cause, or send a signal out that they're providing a product or service to the community. So these are kind of needs that need fulfilling in some fashion. And one of the best ways to do this is through videos, is through making movies. Some people call it commercials. But if you are an artist or a storyteller, maybe you can come in and offer a different narrative structure that indirectly kind of like supports the service or product,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily feel like too on the nose with that.
I mean, it's already happens. I mean, product placement is a thing in feature films. That this is another thing I think that is like that your mind is just very sharp at capturing. People will sort of kind of like look away from commercials or just something that is strictly marketing and try to separate the two. It's already entered uh,
Yeah,
the feature film ecosystem for a long time.
yeah,
So I mean, even independent making, like I was on some sets maybe like 20 years ago, and I remember Red Bull was like a very big, uh, like they were known. I was like, I had like a little network, and I like would hear from people like, you want to get free, um, like I don't know what they offered exactly. Maybe just Red Bull on set. I don't know, but like they were known as like one of the companies that you call, and I think it really helped their brand. Um, but yeah, I wonder how that works because it's a really tough thing to navigate as an artist. I guess what we're finding out is that artists gonna have to be entrepreneurs? Is there any like can artists ever just be artists again for filmmakers at least?
sure they can, but they're going to have to make some kind of compromise. Like they're going to have to go get a job somewhere else to make some money. I mean, artists are incredibly necessary. Artists have a different lens to the world that we all need. Otherwise, sameness of anything looks is terrible. So I think the artist having to struggle is a big component to their craft. I think in some fashion, every artist that struggled that we both know their names. Always look back to that period of their struggle as like the moment that shaped them in some fashion. So, no, I think artists are incredibly necessary. I think the difference is now, unlike any other period of time, is that because of the tools and because of the empowerment that everyday people now have, everybody's now becoming an artist. Like everyone can just slip their face in some narrative thread, and they're now the star of Indiana Jones instead of Harrison Ford. Like that's an interesting future to start like competing against. Like how do you cut through all that? That's going to be a major attention grab. The AI evolution.
Yeah, and but it's the other side of that same coin too. It's not just everyone is becoming an artist. Everyone is also becoming at
Content.
least what
I'm sorry. What are you going to say?
I was gonna say like entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
like is having to face like the business side of their art. Like I'm thinking
Yeah.
even Substack and like writing meets some kind of like you can't avoid it. You can't avoid it today.
No, you can't. Otherwise, like if a tree falls in a forest, it doesn't, if nobody's there, you don't hear it kind of thing. So you could be pounding away in your basement and building something phenomenal, something that's of your time, something that defines your generation. And if it's not on social media or Substack, it doesn't exist, right?
I wonder then like are the whatever these new great artists are going to be. Um, you talk about like auteurs of filmmaking like Godard. I think of Stan Brakhage as somebody who's like really like sort of epitomizes the starving artist filmmaker who really tried to understand the medium. Uh, do you think the medium is going to be very important? And what do you
um,
think like?
yeah, the medium is important because the medium speaks to a preference. So you have to recognize what audience would prefer to see what medium. Obviously, there's people that have a massive appetite for short form content, 60 to 90-second TikTok videos that might be trashy, you know what I mean? But they're like guilty pleasures. And
Yeah.
I've met many people that have confessed that they like it. I like it. Don't tell anybody I like it. I like it. So that's like meeting the audience where they're at with their preferences. And then you got like me and like two other guys that show up to like, a Richard Linklater film in the movie theater. We're the only three people in the theater. And we're totally devouring that. You know what I mean? We love what happens, up there on that screen. And, but that takes a little bit of effort to do that. So I think the question is like, if you're going to make something, and we keep throwing this word signal around, which I really like. I first heard the word signal when I was talking to Jeff Gomez, because I was like, I mentioned I interviewed him. So we did a really good interview session. And he talked about the importance of somebody not necessarily trying to replicate what's already out there, because obviously, you know, what use might that be other than just congratulations from your mom that you can make something as good as anybody else. Um, but it's about finding your signal. Like, what is it that's unique about you? What is it about, the way you see the world and how you've educated yourself, that you have a perspective of some kind? It may not be something that's completely realized, and you might use the medium of film to discover how to express this. And you might not get to the second or until the second or third or fourth film that you make that you're like, oh, this is what I'm trying to say. And that's the process of filmmaking. I mean, wonderful, like Alfred Hitchcock. I think he made like 10 or 15 films before everybody started knowing his name in England. So it's like that's an interesting process.
We did hit our
Uh,
20,
what's that?
we did hit our 20 minutes. Uh, I don't know
We
what,
did.
yeah. I mean, yeah, there's so many conversations I want to have with you. Maybe just,
Should we wrap it up?
yeah, I want to wrap it up with one last question, and I want you to tell me what you think that the title of this episode should be. Do you, with the emphasis on hyper local, but also an emphasis on like an easy rider moment,
Yeah,
do you think something hyper local is going to have, a huge effect? Like the idea of like local becomes universal when done right.
yeah, yeah. I don't know all the answers, but I know one thing. I want to make movies, and I want to make movies today. I don't want to make a script. I don't want to plan for something I'm going to make 2 years from now. I would prefer to come up with an idea, shoot it, and deliver it within 3 months. So the only people I can actually make those kind of movies with are people that I can get to that are in my neighborhood or within 2 or 3 mile period radius. So when I say hyper local, it means building a team hyper locally. So when I talk to my team, and most of these people are either amateurs or becoming aspiring actors or some kind of like that, so they're more open to the idea of exploring this path with me. There's a few professionals that are like abandoned Hollywood and unions and whatnot, and they want to just also make movies right now. I think the idea is that you have the passion, and when you get that group of people that are passionate, what's missing is the structure. So instead of adapting to a structure that seems convoluted and permission based, I'm of the mindset that who can our movie that we're making in our town best serve in our town? For example, there's about 10 independent movie theaters in Portland, and I've been trying to talk to all of them. And I want to know how I can get our experimental films on their website, because that's in itself, that's a platform, you know what I mean? And it could actually be something of interest to bring people to the movie theater, to let the people who are patrons of the movie theater know that there is these independent filmmakers that live in town. That's the movie theater, but there's distilleries and there's like other like services and product platforms that have a great draw. So I'm thinking like, how do we like, they're all platforms. You know what I mean? Why do we have to go through the same old platforms of YouTube and Prime and Hulu? Why can't you start revolutionizing a model where you can actually kind of aggregate multiple platforms within a hyper local area and just find a very strategic way of releasing your series or the first installment of your feature anthology. You know what I mean? Um,
Well,
yeah, like I said, it's a longer conversation, but
yeah.
um, the idea is don't fucking wait anymore. Like actually go outside your door and go start rounding up a gang and then just started like and start kind of filtering that passion towards some kind of platform that could use the attention.
I think somewhere in there you just said the title. Uh, I don't know what
I
line
hope
it.
so.
Go and fucking or just go out and fucking shoot or something.
Well, not just go out, shoot with some intent. I think
Shoot with
the
the
question I ask all my actors is like, where is this movie that we're making going to live? And they're like, oh, YouTube, film festivals. I'm like, no, those are not answers anymore.
shoot with
But
intent. I like that makes sense and that kind of connects.
yeah,
Um, well, you are
well,
definitely a
way
tough
to
person.
go.
You are a tough person to do with this format because I want to talk to you about a lot of these things, but that was fantastic. I
Well, I
think
appreciate you trying.
Yeah. Next time, let me know the topic beforehand. I'm like, but this was great. This was fun. I think you are definitely doing the right thing. I just want to say that, like, if anyone's watching this, like, follow Sasha and see like the insane amount of exploration that you are doing right now. It's really humbling, and it's good to know that somebody's like exploring all these things. I
Yeah.
feel better as a filmmaker that like I know someone's checking this out and like, is this going to work? So,
Well,
thank
thank
you.
you for taking the time. What I like about this is that it's a good benchmark. I don't want to think about this to death. You know, it's important that there is evidence of productivity, even if it's like shit. The idea is that you get,
Yeah.
you got to have something to point to. You can't be spinning the same yarn 6 months, a year from now. You got to show them where you failed.
Which is a nice way to wrap it up to say right before we started talking, you were talking about leaving artifacts everywhere, and you sent me the Portland t-shirt behind me.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Filmstackpdx.com. Woohoo! I think it's great. It's where the virtual and the real world kind of collide there. So I think it's a community platform. It's not like Filmmaker in the Loop, which is more of my own pontifications. That's yeah. Filmstack PDX is more about the community virtually and online and in the real world.
all right. Thank you,
All
Sasha.
right, you got it.